So I've just done a little bit of a spin around, and I think one of the most obvious incorrect spots right now is this knuckle. If you look at the reference, these things are all, let me just zoom in here a little bit. It feels like it's just maybe a little bit too low here, and there's too much volume right in this area. So I'm going to drop it down just a little bit. Hop back over to the mask lasso here. Go ahead and invert that. Tap the Y key to activate the transpose tool, and I'm just going to kind of scoot it up a little bit. Let's hop back up to the higher subdivision level. Okay, and then for the thickness of the space there between the fingers, it might be that it's actually not necessarily too deep. It might just be a little bit too far forward up here. So I'm going to make sure my Z intensity on the clay tubes is a little bit less. Turn off my spotlight projection. And kind of carefully carving some of this stuff back. I think that part of the middle finger might be a little bit too sharp along that inside edge there. Maybe kind of build some of this stuff up a bit more than it is. It's just kind of looking at that shape there. Almost looks like a, I don't know, like a teardrop or something. All right. Still a little collapsy through there. If we look at the reference, go ahead and flip it. Zoom in here. So just kind of looking at that. This line here specifically. Well, maybe it's not that bad. Almost feels like this bend is maybe even just a little bit lower than I have. So you can see even at this relatively late phase in this project, I'm still hopping down to lower subdivision levels pretty routinely. So it's good to make sure you've got access to those. And I noticed some issues a little bit earlier with the thumb. This is just a little bit too sharp. We definitely still want that distinct planar change there, but just not quite that pronounced. I'm going to flatten 404, square alpha, set the focal shift down a bit. Kind of feels like this vein here might be a little bit too high up. Although I remember kind of looking at it from that side and thinking it was okay. So maybe there's just some middle ground situation there. I think I'm going to grab, I see here that these two fingers line up pretty much at the same point. Those look pretty good to me. Again, it can be a little bit tricky when you've got two hands. I want to make sure that the thickness on that knuckle looks good. It feels like that gap might be just a little bit too pronounced. Tap the Z key to activate and deactivate. This is actually a pretty good view to confirm that my fingernail stuff looks good, and I can see here that I have some issues. So I'm going to use the move brush. Just try to even it out from the top view here. But back to this. A little bit more of a ridge there. Same thing over there. Just kind of pops out a bit more than I have it, and it looks like that knuckle needs to come out just a little more as well. And then we are kind of missing that nice drop off there. So I'm going to just knock back the stuff immediately below that first knuckle on the pinky. And maybe just give it a little bit more size there. All right, let's take a look at it from above again. Looks like this area here might be the offending. I'm going to go up a couple subdivisions. So there we're starting to get a little bit of a difference. That's looking a little bit better. I'm going to use the dam standard here to try to sharpen up, reduce the intensity on that. That line there just a little bit. You know, start approximating some wrinkles here where the knuckles might go. Again, when the surface is this thick, you know whatever you're doing. I'm sorry, by thick I mean when it's got this much, this many marks on it, you start throwing wrinkles in, you're definitely going to be throwing away some work at some point. So what I'm going to start doing now with the rest of these, with the rest of the process here, there's clearly a lot more sculpting left to go. If you've made it this far, congratulations. I think this is probably about 4 hours in, and that might seem like a long time for a tutorial, but for an actual project, we're basically like halfway through one regular working day. So when you consider what we've got here as the product of half of a day, you can imagine what you might be expected to produce over the period of, you know, a week or whatever. It would be significantly more sculpting than I have done here. So, you know, it's important to practice and challenge yourself and continue to try to push forward with your skill set. It doesn't have to be technically complicated. The magic is oftentimes, you know, just sort of observing what's going on with the reference and what you have, and then using relatively simple tools that are available to everybody here in Zbrush to achieve some kind of three-dimensional likeness of what it is that you're sculpting. So, but because the rest of this is going to be pretty much exactly what I've been doing for the previous 4 hours, I am going to go ahead and continue working, and I'm going to speed the video up. And if there's anything that is relevant, I will add on a little addendum video or two at the end of this. Like, for instance, to clean this up, what I'm going to do is probably ultimately, the geometry here is kind of screwed up, so I'm going to need to probably either Z-remesh this or Dynamesh and reproject, and then I'll have clean geometry up there. Or I might just decide to do another clip operation and just take a little bit more off. Either one of those would be completely reasonable. Anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed this and that it's been useful, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email.